everyone. We really hope you enjoy this episode. So, if you're watching on YouTube, if you could please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can always follow us there. Every like and share and subscribe can help our channel to be seen by many more Stargate fans. So, we really appreciate it. And then we also have all of our socials listed up on the screen right now if you wish to follow us there. Okay, thank you, and I hope you enjoy. Bye. And to all the Stargate fans out there, we would love to hear from you and chat with you on our show. So if you're interested in doing that, please reach out to us via any of our social media platforms or email.
So today, I think we're going to talk about episode 10 of season 1 of Universe, which is called Justice, I believe, because you texted me and said, this might be an interesting one to watch. I just watched it. So I guess maybe we'll start with just asking you, like, we can maybe start with just some standout things of the episode and then go on, because it actually is a pretty thick and heavy episode, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I mean, well, one, I think we had said before, like with both of us with Universe, it's kind of like we kind of got to leave it to when we actually feel like watching it as opposed to watching a bunch all at once. And so I'd finally felt like watching it, and I really enjoyed this episode. And it didn't, even though it's such a big episode in the sense of what happens within this episode, I didn't actually feel like it was a struggle to watch through, where some of them in the past have been. And then it just kind of feels like this would make sense to talk about this episode just because it is, leaves you on a big cliffhanger with Rush. And so yeah, that was like kind of the main reason why I was thinking we could talk about it, just because there's a lot of different things that happen with some of the characters throughout the episode that I thought was interesting. I don't know when you want me to go into detail with that, but just things within it that stood out to me. So yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. And one thing I did look up because I was curious, because I didn't think about this at all until you mentioned that it was a mid-season, that it ended on kind of a cliffhanger, or maybe you said specifically, oh, it ended on an interesting cliffhanger. And of course, it occurred to me, okay, it's episode 10. It's probably some kind of mid-season pause episode. So I actually looked it up, and the final, like, episode 10, which is Justice, the one we were talking about, aired on early December 2009. The next episode aired in early April 2010. So the people that were watching this actually had to wait like 4 months to find out if Rush was okay, basically. And
oh my gosh. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of crazy, because you mentioned just now this was one that you particularly had an easy time watching. And I would say actually around this time in season 1 is where I think I spent a day watching a lot, because this is kind of around a period of time where everything gets very, I mean, I'm not sure if suspenseful is the right word, but things start leading into each other in a way that kind of makes you want to keep watching the next episode.
Interesting, because yeah, I wonder, like, yeah, I could see myself actually doing that now with it. Which is interesting, because like I've said before, like it's been a bit of a struggle for me with this show, even though I've seen it before and initially really loved it. This time around, it's like I like it, but it's a heavy show to watch constantly. So yeah, that's interesting. So did you find then too, because I know you're further along in the Universe series season. So did you find that at this point is kind of where you start to feel like you wanted to kind of pick up watching more?
Yes, yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you've seen the next episode after or not, or if this is kind of the
No,
last
I
one.
haven't.
But yeah, I think it was around here. Maybe starting with the one we first talked about, which was Time, I think, with the contagion. I can't remember which title it was, but it was the one with the contagion and the Kinos, Which is actually kind of interesting that you also brought this up as an episode that was somehow easier to watch, because actually the two I think we've talked about so far are actually two of the most, in a way, intense and heavy episodes. Time and then no
Maybe
justice.
that's what it is, though, about the way I like that. Maybe that says something about me as a viewer, then, because maybe that's what's for me lacking in the other ones is there's not enough like things going on in the other ones. It's more like just like in terms of like Stargate, right? Like it's like if you think of SG-1 and Atlantis, there's always some sort of action going on within the episode of something happening and then something concluding by the end of it, or sometimes it's a be to be continued kind of thing. So there's always some sort of action going on, and maybe that's what is harder for me with this is it's more of just like an underlying level of depression that you feel throughout the throughout the episodes because they're all stuck there and they're all pissed off at each other and they're all just miserable, and that's kind of what you feel. And then you have all these different like things happening within their personal lives that's just kind of like gives you a bleh feeling. And so when there's actually something there that brings a little more life to it, in my opinion at least, I like that. So it's like in this episode I did feel like it was kind of cool because it kind of was like a murder mystery, right? It was like a
Yes,
murder
true.
mystery episode. And uh it's kind of like I had kind of like remembered bits and pieces. So from the beginning of this episode, I had an inkling of what I had thought I remembered happening, but I was never fully sure. So I was always kind of guessing throughout. So I did find that like fun to watch because it was like, I'm just like, well, who did this? Like who shot, like, I forget what the name of the guy was that they found dead. Does it say? It just says on my crew member was found dead. I can't remember the name of the character's name, but the guy that basically was they were having issues with.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. What was his name? Spencer.
Yeah.
Sergeant
And
Spencer.
so it's like, the beginning of this episode, for the most part, that's what happens is he's found dead, right? And a gunshot to the head. And at first they thought it was self-inflicted, and then they're like, well, no gun was found. So then it's like they're trying to figure out, it's kind of like a murder mystery of like who did it? And so I found that really cool because I'm just like, okay, like clearly it could have been anyone that did it, because many people didn't like him. And so like the whole time you're trying to guess and like trying to almost um overanalyze how each person is acting. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what I also liked about the episode. And to me, I don't know what you think about this, but I felt like one of the characters that to me acted out of character was Camille Ray. Is that how you say her name? Camille Ray?
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
The
Okay.
IOA lady,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, I feel like so in this episode, because I know like you saw a while back, right? I'm not sure if you recently saw it, but basically she's, you know, trying to take over in place of Colonel Young because then they think
Yes.
that he shot the guy. And so then she takes over. But for me, compared to how they show her up to this point, she suddenly becomes very like typical IOA, if that
Yes.
makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Like she seems very like, well, this is how it is, this is what we're doing, but in almost like a vicious, like heartless way of wanting to do things and assuming blame and assuming that there's no other thing possible. And so it's like at first I was just like, oh, did she do it? Like, was she like using those stones and like it wasn't actually her, but someone used her body to kill the guy, and then she came back to her body and like didn't know who did it, but like they were trying to get her in charge. And so like I was thinking something weird was going on with that. Because
Mm-hmm.
I felt like she was acting very over the top compared to what they show her normally, or at least in my opinion of what I remember. Because I did have a big break from watching the show until this point, so I could be remembering it flawed. But mainly up to this point with her character, from what I remember, there's a little bit of backstory of her and her girlfriend. There's a little bit of a backstory of her in the IOA and the guy on Earth trying to get her to take control of the ship, I think. And so um that's all you basically kind of know. And she does, to me, she seems like she's a type to take control, but she doesn't seem to like overstep authority. And in this case, I felt like she was trying to overstep authority, and it was almost like I felt like something else was planned, and that I wasn't sure if she was like a part of planning something a bit weird in order to get Colonel Young out of the picture and put the blame on him. So that's initially what I was kind of thinking was going on. Um, and then of course, like they're also questioning, I think, Greer in this episode,
Yes.
which, I feel like clearly it wasn't him, but it's like it would make sense why the characters would think it was him because of his personality within, how he treats everyone and his past. And so um that kind of made sense, but at the same time it was just kind of like I always knew Rush was acting a little. Rush always acts sketchy, so it's like you
Yes.
never know if there's like a reason behind it or not. He always acts like he's one or two steps ahead of everyone else in his mind of something he's planned that no one knows he's planned, basically, is how it always feels to me when watching it. um, but when you watched this episode, if you can remember, did you think it was Rush? Because basically, how this episode is that Rush, you find
Hmm.
out, sets up Colonel Young, that it was actually self inflicted. The guy did commit suicide, and that Rush hides the gun to make it look like it was Colonel Young that had shot him. And so that was all planned on Rush's part. So were you surprised when that happened, or did you think that that's how it was going to go?
I think if I remember right, I had a feeling it was gonna either be Young or Rush trying to frame the other, but I didn't
Hmm.
know which. I think like from my perspective, the episode, I mean, it's a very heavy episode, and I think it was like, I mean, it's interesting that we're talking about this and time because something that I think is very similar in both is how much they actually deal with the like in completely different ways that it actually deals more with the dynamics between a cast in a way that is, I mean, I know there's always dynamics between them, but it's very different from like the typical dynamics between the cast. In one case, they have to try and solve something somewhat together. In this case, it's almost like they are all putting each other like under extreme scrutiny, basically.
Yeah.
And I I find that, yeah, I think overall, like probably to make the intrigue much higher, certain characters had a little bit of over exaggerated, but not to an extreme. I think it was more like they highlighted certain aspects to try and, to keep making you think different things. Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting what you mentioned about Camille because I can totally see that. But for some reason, I remember at the time because I was kind of expecting like her and Telford to sort of be plotting. It seemed like their sort of plot between them against Young was kind of ramping up. I really felt like it was the situation where um, maybe Camille was using this opportunity along with Telfer to basically take the power and have the IOA then in charge of the ship rather than
Yeah.
it kind of it did have this very IOA versus military vibe. So I think I
Yeah.
agree with you for sure. Um, I think the thing I honestly like of everything, like I was not surprised when they revealed that Rush kind of hit it, and I think as soon as there was this whole thing about it being on the Kino, um, I think then I suspected,
Yeah.
okay, it's probably going to be Rush because then Eli will want to cover for him or something. And the thing that really shocked me, like I think the thing where I went, oh wow, that's because this stuff is all well within what you would expect. People kind of plotting and
Yeah.
scheming and the thing that shocked me the most in the episode was at the very end when Colonel Young basically left Rush to die. And I was like, because
Yeah.
I had a feeling they were gonna fight, and obviously something was gonna come to a head. But the fact that he like basically left him, essentially murdered him, like that, I was not expecting that to happen at all. So that
Yeah.
one, that really took me by surprise, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, when I very first saw this episode a long time ago, when I first watched Universe, I remember that same thing of thinking like, oh my gosh, she's left him there. This time I had thought that I didn't remember that that was this episode, and I'd honestly kind of forgot about it happening, but it's kind of like this weird thing with my memory that when I'm watching this show, because I have seen it before, little things start to reveal itself in my memory as I'm watching. So once they were on the other planet, I knew like something, like, and they started fighting, then I was like, oh wait, doesn't he leave him there? And then so it
Mhm.
wasn't so much a surprise but just more of a memory for me this time. But the thing that kind of cracks me up in a sense about the whole vibe of that, it's kind of like the way Colonel Young acts, which I mean, granted, the guy tried to frame him. Like
Mhm.
that's horrible, and I think it's very valid for him to want to beat the crap out of him and leave him there because the guy was literally trying to destroy his life.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, it's like the vibe I get from him when he's like walking through this Stargate back, it's almost like it reminds me of like kind of like a teenager like huffing and puffing, being pissed off at someone and kind of like pouting over the fact that someone did them wrong and then lying about all the things that occurred. That's
Oh,
what it reminded me of.
that's such a good way of
um
putting it, actually.
and what's weird though is as I was watching this episode, the thing I observed with myself that I thought was strange was Colonel Young didn't irritate me in this episode.
Oh, really?
Because
Wait, really?
like I've been telling you is the whole time I can't stand Colonel Young. For some reason, the whole time I was watching this, I'm like, huh, Colonel Young doesn't annoy me in this one. I don't know why, but he just doesn't annoy me in this one. Maybe a little at the end, maybe, but like for some reason, I don't know if it's just that I'm getting more used to the characters at this point, and so it's less of like a trigger to be annoyed by certain characters. I don't know. I don't really know why I feel that way, but I did notice that as I was watching this, that he didn't irritate me as much. And then you know what it could be is maybe because this is the first time his character is kind of unfairly treated.
Yeah, like
Maybe that's
everybody's
why.
against him. Everybody's trying to
Yeah.
be against him. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because I definitely like, I mean, of course I love the character. Like I love the character,
Hmm.
but yeah, he definitely annoyed me in this episode too. But as the character
Hmm.
should. I mean, it's like I think
Yeah.
it's a very well written character that made me annoyed. But I'm also, like I'm Team Rush, so
I
I'm
do
like,
love Rush. Yeah, I do love Rush. It's kind of like it's just such a cool character, isn't it? Like there's just something really wonky about him that's such a mystery. Like there's
yeah.
just something about him that's very mysterious that like makes me just really like the character even though he is like such an ass and he makes horrible decisions. Like he just cares about himself. Like he always has like a reason for doing everything, but it's because of whatever weird plan he's got going on that ship. Like all of the things that occurred, I'm pretty sure are because of him. Like the whole mess they are in is because of Rush. Like
Right?
so
Yeah.
it's kind of it's kind of like, you know, it's like you feel like you should hate him and not want to see him. But then at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. He's like one of the best characters there.
Yeah.
Like he's just such a cool character. And I think the actor plays him so well that it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I definitely had always remembered Rush. Like even though there's a lot with Universe I don't remember, it his character was the one character I would always remember, as well as Eli. Eli and Rush were the two characters that stuck out in my mind from the last time I watched it. And everyone else I'd kind of honestly forgotten about. I'd maybe remembered a little bit of uh Chloe, right? That's her name, Chloe. But which she doesn't honestly bother me. I know like she had initially irritated you in the beginning. Do you feel like as you've continued watching that she still does,
I don't
or
really
how do you
like the
feel about her character
I
now?
think mostly her character annoys me with how she is with Eli. Like if she's just there or with
Mm-hmm.
anyone else, I'm not bothered, but I think it's like I don't like how she treats Eli. It really hurts
Yeah.
me, my core of how she treats
Yeah.
Eli. I think it's really good character writing, like in general, because I think what you mentioned, like when you said, okay, Colonel Young didn't annoy me in this one, and he usually annoys me, and you have the situation where he's rather than being necessarily the antagonist or in whatever circumstance, other people are kind of antagonizing him. And so then you
Mm-hmm.
feel kind of empathy for this character. I mean, I think you could also say conversely that in this episode, Camille was maybe put in more of a antagonizing position, which
Which I
I
didn't
think,
like her as much in this too. Yeah.
right. And I think this is really fascinating. Like to me, that's interesting because then it makes to me the characters less one dimensional and you have less of this
Yeah.
like good guy versus bad guy thing. And it's more like a complex network of people kind of trying to survive and then struggling for power, and that there isn't really necessarily a good guy. And I mean, I wouldn't even say necessarily Rush is a good guy. It's just to me what is fascinating about Rush is I think he really only has the singular motivation, which is
Mm-hmm.
to like answer something, like to answer some question. I don't really know what the question is. Like he sees this as something humanity needs to do, and that's kind of his pure motivation. And I think it's unwavering. Like the whole time is unwavering, and I think that's kind of what I when I think about Rush. I mean, who knows? Maybe I changed my mind at this show. Like we can hold out judgment, but I think it's really interesting because with everyone else, you definitely get this feeling of their certain aspects of their personality kind of coming out and different. It's kind of like with Chloe, how I don't like her dynamic with Eli, but it's not like I mind her
Mm-hmm.
dynamic with necessarily other people. It's just I don't like her
Yeah.
dynamic with Eli. And so
Yeah.
I think that's something maybe they really tried to do because human beings aren't like necessarily like that anyways in the first place. That
Exactly.
so I
Exactly.
really like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. It again is a nod to the amazing writing for all of the Stargate stuff. Um, I can't honestly think of any other show where I feel like the writing was quite as good. Um,
Mhm.
that I can compare it to. I feel like it really does, show like how good that is. Another thing that I was just thinking of that I think is in this episode that's kind of a bigger moment as well is what's his name? He's like a side character. I think he's like a scientist or something. He's kind of annoying.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and Rush has him and Eli. So after Camille is like in charge, Rush basically talks her into allowing him to be able to be in charge of his team. Whereas before, Colonel Young, I think, was in control of all of that. And so, again, Rush being sneaky, right, by getting what he wants because Colonel Young wouldn't let him use the chair before. That chair
Yeah,
that
that's
puts
right.
in the information that could potentially kill someone and rushes to chicken shit to try it himself because he knows it could kill him. So what does he do? He tries to manipulate everyone else around him in order to use the chair, but not directly tell them to use the chair. So it's
Oh,
like
that's
he used
really
his
yeah.
manipulation skills to get that one scientist guy to feel like he should try the chair. And then he had Eli leave to get him something like some sort of food or something out of the whatever you call it. Is it called the mess hall or the cafeteria? I don't
Probably
know
it's
what you
what
call
called
it.
the mess hall. Yeah.
Um and then when Eli came back, the guy, like, he was yelling for help because the things were like in the guy's head and he's like convulsing and like they couldn't get out of his head. And then they finally do. And now I think in this episode, he's just in a coma. Like they don't know what's going to happen with him. So it's kind of like that's a big thing too, because the episodes leading up to this one, it's all about Rush trying to get permission to research that chair and to get someone to sit in the chair and all this stuff. And he kind of plays the role of acting like, oh well, no one told him to get in the chair, I told him to not go in the chair. Like, of course, right, like the whole thing that he wanted to do from the beginning was get someone in the chair, so he clearly
Of course.
manipulated him, you know, so to make the guy think it was his own decision, and now he's in a coma or possibly dead, I don't know. um and so that's kind of a big moment too, because I'm not sure, I don't remember honestly what happens with that, so that will be new to me once I start watching more of the episodes. And then also, um when they went on the planet that Rush was left on, there was a guy on the team that I have never seen before that they
Mhm.
kept kind of almost doing close-ups of. And I'm like, why is that? Is he going to be like an additional side character to the show? And I don't even know what his name was, but I don't know if you remember this, but there was like some guy that they kept like zooming in on and he'd like say something and they kind of made him a little bit noticeable. So now I'm wondering if he's going to be more of a thing in the coming episodes. He was just one of the
Okay.
people that was on the planet, and he was saying, "Oh, well, see, there's nothing here." And he was saying like that there was nothing there. And then everyone's like, "Well, no, look, turn around." And then that's when they saw the ship that is on the planet that Rush wanted
Right. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like look at.
Right.
And so it was weird because usually when they bring attention to characters you've never seen before, either it's because they're going to die
Yeah. True.
or it's
Yes.
because, yeah, or it's because they're becoming more of a character on the show. So I'm curious if he ends up being in the episodes like more now, like
Mhm.
after this, because they kept like doing close-ups and stuff that I wouldn't understand otherwise why that would have been there.
Yeah. Luckily, I am honestly like I have to say I'm the worst person with this kind of faces and stuff that I actually don't remember if it's someone that will become like that. I
Mhm.
don't remember, so I can't even spoil it for you if I wanted to. I'll
No,
have to
I'll
wait in
just,
that case.
yeah, next time we talk about more of the other episodes, I'll mention if I've seen them, because I'm actually the opposite. I'm really good with faces. I'm terrible with names. I'm terrible with
Okay.
remembering specific words, but I can remember faces, dang it.
Oh my gosh, I cannot. Like, I could never watch Game of Thrones because I will literally forget all the characters who they are, especially because some of them, like they are related, so they will look similar. And then, a guy in a chest plate with a beard it looks like the other guy in a chest plate with a beard. And I don't know, okay, this one's a bad guy, this one's a good guy, okay, this one's from this house, I don't know. And then there's somebody getting tortured, and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for him. And then, Martin's like, but he did something really awful to a bunch of kids. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know. Like, I can't remember these things. I'm the worst, absolute
Oh my
worst.
gosh, that's
Um,
funny.
but it's interesting how just because you brought up the chair thing, it's interesting how in this episode they really like they in a way made it that there's this really bizarre cliffhanger where you're wondering about Rush, but at the same time, I can imagine as someone watching this, you're probably like, oh, good that is left on the planet. Like,
Yeah,
like I really
yeah.
would be, I'm honestly genuinely curious for people that watch it when it came out or something, or watched it, I don't know, in some way had to wait and see were they actually happy to see that there was no more Rush? Maybe like, oh, thank God this guy is just gone. Maybe, you know,
Probably. I mean,
I would,
because uh, I mean, all the things he's done up to that point, you know, and it's like at that point, it's like he's then also tried to cause Colonel Young to be blamed for murder. He's um seen a guy commit suicide and didn't tell anyone. Instead, immediately he goes into like the mode of like, oh, well, how can I use this to my advantage? Like, and
Hmm.
then he uses that to his advantage to undermine Colonel Young, to then also, I think he doesn't value Camille's authority. I think he thinks he can stomp all over her basically and make her moldable to whatever it is that he wants. So that's why he wanted her in charge. And
Totally.
basically just kind of be like almost like a puppet master of everyone, you know? And so, you know, it's like if you think of the awful things he has done, he's pretty much probably caused this whole thing to happen, that all these people are stranded on a freaking ship. Then, I mean, I don't know for sure if it's all caused by him, but I think there's something, I don't remember. I mean, it has something to do with him. And so then like you know, and then it's like to lack the empathy when someone reaches a point that they need to kill themselves to get away from it all, and he lacks the empathy to be able to even feel sorry for that guy, knowing that guy has a family, friends, whatever. Like he just sees it as an opportunity. And then he sees it as an opportunity to destroy people's lives, to then get the other guy to go in the chair. It was almost like he was happy the guy went in the chair because now he figures he can
Oh
study
yeah,
that guy, you
totally,
know,
totally. Yeah.
instead of thinking that guy's potentially brain dead and or you know never going to get out of the coma or whatever, you know, like who knows what's happened to him. And so for someone to be like that, like truly, if you think about how awful that is, you know, like you really got to be an extra level of awfulness to like truly not feel anything to be okay with that. Like all the things he's okay with is, you know, quite awful, but somehow he gets away with being awful and still likable, like we were saying. Like he's, you
Yeah.
know, one of my favorite characters, and I still want him to be on the show, and I still, you know, I'm curious about him. Um, but he does such horrible things,
Well,
all
I
for the
so
sake of himself.
yeah. I mean, I think it's always so interesting to me because in a way, I think what makes him so interesting is that mystery of why he is doing everything and what he is
Yeah,
doing. And I think then it kind of gives you this like sense of there is something he knows that everybody else doesn't know, and you don't know what that is. And so
yeah,
you kind of want
yeah,
to know that, and it makes you want to watch the show. And then it shows his backstory. And actually, when like, you know, you see some of his backstory, you get a little bit sad for him. And then it makes you like maybe it,
I
feel,
don't think
okay,
I've seen any of his backstory yet. I don't think.
I won't delve into it, but you know, they always show things about Rush. I think that it's somehow I think it's such a complex character. Like I think Rush is one of the
Mhm.
most complex characters in Stargate for me because he isn't really acting necessarily from a place of goodness. And I think in many other, I mean, in every other Stargate they want to save the world, they want to do these good things, and they're always, you know, nobody left behind. And that is, I think, how, like, to me, I love that because that's, I mean, how you want people to operate, and it makes you want to cheer for them. And of course, when you watch an episode and somebody is left behind, and O'Neill says, "Yeah, we're gonna go get them no matter what," and they rescue people, you feel happy, like you know, knowing how much they value lives. And so it's very fascinating to see the a Stargate show where the main character almost has the opposite um thinking that's actually maybe more like a Goa'uld. Like really that everything is kind
Yes,
of a
yeah,
means to an end in a way. Like, okay, these people are just a
yeah,
means to an end and to do this. And you really kind I mean, who knows? By the end, maybe you find out his motivation is really, really terrible. Maybe by the end you find out his motivation actually isn't so terrible. Like, and so maybe you don't
yeah.
know. And I think that aspect makes the character so fascinating. But it's interesting
Do you,
because yeah, but
yeah,
by the end of this episode, you probably like as a human being, like looking at him going, yeah, well, he friggin' deserved that.
yeah, yeah. Like, do you think that that character would work in any of the other Stargate series? Because I don't think it would in the same way. Like, I feel like Universe is, I mean, obviously, like, when they write these things, they set it up for the show they're writing it for. So it's kind of a silly question, I think, that I'm asking. But like, I was just thinking because it's like how I've mentioned before, I feel like Eli could fit in really well in Atlantis, for example. I think I could imagine him and McKay actually getting along really well,
Totally,
and
totally.
things like that, you know? And so it's like sometimes I think of how these other characters would be. Oh my God, did you hear my stomach? My stomach just growled. What is happening? This
No.
happened last time too. It's like raw. I have a gold in there. Um, thank God, like there's like a filter on my or whatever you call it when the microphone filters out sound because like it would just sound insane. It sounded like I was growling. Um, but anyway, sorry, I got distracted. But like what I was saying was that with Rush, I can't imagine him being like in Atlantis or SG-1 in the context of a main character because I feel like he would just be too disliked that he would almost be like the equivalent of the guy that was in Atlantis that no one liked that had the ponytail. What was his name?
Kavanaugh. It's so
Yeah,
funny
Kavanaugh.
because
Yeah.
the minute you asked this question, all I could think of was, well, he'd probably be like Kavanaugh. So it's so fun. I mean, I actually think it's a really good question. Like, I find these questions kind of fascinating, but I definitely think he'd be like Kavanaugh because, I mean, especially his personality, he's very rough in how he talks and straightforward. And I think, I mean, Kavanaugh was maybe a little bit inept, and I think that's where the difference is. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell because Rush is not surrounded by the best of the best. He's kind of surrounded by people that are all there that may or may not be the best.
Yeah.
But it's like kind of in Stargate and SG-1 Atlantis, it's very implied that, oh, this is the top team and this is the top team and they're the absolute chosen. Whereas in Universe, it's kind of implied these people are all here. They're all very clearly very adept at what they're doing, but the kind of collection of all of them onto the Destiny is more or less aleatoric. So it's kind of like random. So I don't know in that sense like how he would be in a circumstance where everybody else was kind of cherry picked.
Hmm.
Um, but I would get a Kavanaugh vibe. But I have to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, even though you kind of, want him to sort of get something at the end of that episode, I still feel that I was very somehow shocked that he was kind of left for dead because that aspect
Yeah.
I thought was very, I would say there's moments that are just really shocking. Like probably one of the two biggest is I think Dr. Fraiser and Beckett. The way that they do both of their deaths, this is very shocking. Like you do not expect like
Hmm.
this. I think this is probably another one of those moments where it just kind of it jars you because
Yeah.
you don't expect that other character to do that. Like Young is
Yeah.
kind of hot-headed and he's trying to take his power, but capable of that? Like you know what I mean? Like it's a bit
Yeah.
jarring in a
Yeah,
very
no, I agree. I agree. Exactly. And it's kind of one of those things that I feel like you can almost feel him second guessing too. Like I feel
yes,
like when he
yeah.
comes through the Stargate, it's like he had to make everything on like a split second decision because he had to rush back. Rush
Mm-hmm.
back, no pun intended.
Rush back without rush.
Oh my God. But like because it's like then when he walks through the Stargate, it's like I almost like I don't know if I'm putting my own like personal like feelings in it as I'm viewing it or not, but I felt like it did give that vibe of him like second guessing what he chose to do, but it happened
Yes,
so
totally.
fast. Then it was like he was just like, F it. That's what happened, but I'm gonna say this happened, and like he just didn't make it. Like, and so it's interesting. It definitely is something that you would never expect Colonel Young to do because while he is annoying, he seems to tend to try and make the decisions for the greater good, similar to what you were
Yeah.
saying typical Stargate stuff is. So that type of thing that he did is more of a Rush move. You know,
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
like Rush would do that, but would anyone
Yes.
else do that? Typically no, you know? So like yeah, it's interesting, and I am interested to see what happens because I don't remember fully everything that happens like after all of this. So, um, yeah, I'm curious about that. Um, and like too, like I just think like with Camille, like there's something about her character that I've always been very borderline on in terms of like, do I like her, do I not like her? And I don't know if it's just because it's like the IOA and like the IOA is so unlikable, and then it's like you grow to like them, kind of like how it was with Woolsey. It's like initially he was just like this pain in the butt character, and then eventually you grow to like him and you see another side of him that you don't always see until he's like in charge of Atlantis. So, you know, maybe it's something like that. But and then too, I think with Eli, I felt like Eli didn't like he didn't act different, but I feel like in this episode he kind of was a little out of character slightly in terms of he seems to normally be someone that's so like pushing for the right thing to be done. And I felt like sometimes he was just kind of quiet. Like he didn't like when Colonel Young basically wanted him to do something where he erased the footage that was found.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I think Eli knew that Colonel Young was wanting him to do that for a reason that would not be the greatest, and like he's just kind of quiet about it and just kind of acts strange about it, like but not in his typical Eli way of fighting for like what's right kind of thing. Like I feel like sometimes he's usually more like vocal and
Yes.
almost
True.
kind of almost in a childlike sense of like, why aren't you guys doing what's right? Like this is what's right. Well, what's
Yes.
wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know, kind of attitude. And so I didn't feel like he necessarily took that role in this episode. So it's interesting how like you're seeing his character get affected by being on the ship for so long, maybe, and how things are starting to unravel. So yeah.
Yeah. That's so true, though, what you said about Eli sort of being that childlike voice of justice, right?
Childlike voice of justice.
It's like because I mean, you always have this situation, like really, like
Yeah.
adults get involved. Like, I mean, of course, adults are kind of in a way a little bit stupid with how they deal with life, and they have all these interests, and whereas kids, they kind of have a quite clear sense of right and wrong that is actually quite simple and pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But adults have all these complications. And Eli kind of, he brought like, of course it's not right to kill somebody, or of course it's not right to treat someone like this. But in the grand scheme of things, all the adults, they have all these special interests, and this person wants power and that person wants power, and they don't know whether to do this
Yeah.
because it will, cause this thing or whatever. And so I think you're right. Eli does kind of take on that role of like this sort of common um sense of right and wrong, which is true. But yeah, I think it's interesting watching these kind of things of how it definitely causes people to do things they wouldn't normally do, and how
Hmm.
probably something like that, like when you think about it, I mean, it is a whodunit, you're right. Like the episode is a whodunit. But if you think about it from the perspective of you're somebody in the ship, people have been trapped there. They don't know how long they're going to be there. People are starting to lose it over rations and things. And then somebody there, like, either commits suicide or is killed, and you're stuck there too. You don't know whether there's a risk of being killed yourself. You don't know whether you might feel like you might completely, lose all sense of everything and want to do it yourself. Like, so I imagine it must be like not really good at all for your well-being in that sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I honestly can't even imagine that
I
situation.
know. I know. It's very, very horrible. I kind of feel like, there was this is gonna sound so stupid, but I feel like there was a missed opportunity to like, because if you think of like how in the beginning, before they all got stuck on the ship, um, what was it that they were doing that they expected to be able to go back to Earth, right? I can't even remember what it was that they were doing, but they were on a different planet that then they were supposed to then go back to Earth or something, but then they had to rush out and then all of that happened. But like, I feel like it's kind of like a missed opportunity to have like a Stargate pet, like have like a dog or a cat or something with someone that
Yeah,
then it ends up being stuck on the ship with them. Because I feel like it'd be so cute to have just that little bit of happiness with like a cat or dog or something that would every now and then appear in an episode and bring a little bit of happiness, like
that's such a good idea. That is totally a good idea. Absolutely. And I mean, it's
I
not
mean, I'm
outside.
sure oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's not outside of the realm of Stargate because remember in SG-1, Carter had gave Schrodinger to Narim. So I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not at all outside of the realm of what they would have done. That would have been cool.
Yeah. Oh my
And it
gosh.
could have
Yeah,
had
that would
like
be really cool.
a cute little geeky name or something.
Yeah, I would have liked that. And I feel like I feel like Eli probably would like be taking care of the pet most of the time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a feeling like if there were plants or animals or anything that needed care somehow in that sense, that were like this sense that weren't taken care of by scientists, I have somehow get the feeling that Eli would be the caretaker, that he would
Yeah.
end up in that
Yeah.
role somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that sense, he'd also be probably like good friends. Like if we're thinking of different shows like SGA and things like that, he'd probably be good friends with the botanist, Katie, the botanist.
Yeah, totally. That I could see that actually, which is funny
Yeah.
because he'd also be. I mean, you mentioned he would be good friends with McKay, and I think they would end up
Yeah.
friends. But I just get this feeling that in the first time they would meet, McKay would have this like fake rivalry
Yes.
with him. Like he would try and kind of
Yes.
smarter than him, but Eli would have zero clue what's going on.
Yes. Yeah. You're exactly right. I feel like it's kind of like a rite of passage with McKay, like to kind of like initially dislike someone to then
Yes, yeah.
suddenly become best friends with them. It's like your rite of passage into friendship with McKay.
Oh, totally. 100%. 100%. Yeah, that's how you become besties. Yeah. I would be interested, like, what other people think of who would they like to see the cast of Universe interacting with from the other Stargates? Because
Yeah.
I think that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if some of them do end up eventually going on Universe somehow. I don't know if McKay ends up being on Universe.
I've heard McKay is
Uh,
on Universe, so I'm actually curious, like,
yeah.
how he gets on. And maybe we'll find out how he gets on with Eli.
Yeah. Yeah. So no one tell us because we haven't
Yeah,
seen
no
it
one
yet.
tell us.
But like, um, yeah, I would be curious though, like what people from each like show would people kind of set up together as being friends and getting along or being like annoyed with each other, that kind of thing. That would be interesting to kind of hear about.
Yeah, like who would you want to see in an episode, a crossover episode with Universe that like we haven't necessarily seen together, or that we even like side characters I think would be cool. Like you said, Eli and Kate or Katie. Yeah,
Yeah.
could be kind of
Yeah.
cool. But yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
also I think
yeah,
oh, also we should probably say I wonder what other people thought of this particular episode, if it stuck out to them, or if they found
you
it
read my
dark.
mind. Yeah.
And how did people react when Rush was left on the planet? Was this the most shocking thing to you in Universe so far, or not? Or was it the reveal of Rush, you know, framing Young?